Good morning, everyone. So in the last class, we identified the basic examples here. The first example we identified here, so how the main method is going to call, and along with the main method, like how we are printing this information, we identified here in the last class. And so along with this, so one more example we identified here with the help of this particular int data type, like we are trying to multiply the some value here. So basically, here we need to understand some more information here. What I'm doing here, the line number 3, I'm trying to declare the variable here, right? So what is the data type we are using here? The data type called int here. So we'll complete we'll try to discuss regarding this particular int data type. But now observe here, so what exactly this num will contain here? So num is a variable name here. Getting the point? So basically in Java, first we need to define the data type here. After defining the data type, so we need to provide the variable name here. So why we need to provide the variable name here? Getting the point? So to store the value, like whatever the value we are going to initialize here, the value will store inside this particular num variable here. So this is important here. Getting the point? So now what happening here? So this is the variable name called num. Initially, what is the value we will have? 0 here. Getting the point. Initially, the 0 will become the 0 will come here. So why the 0 will come? We'll try to discuss more about this particular 0 value in our upcoming classes here. But back to here. So the line number 4, what we are doing here? Getting the point. The line number 4, what we are doing is we are trying to initializing the value. So initialization will take only the single equals here. Getting the point? Because in our upcoming classes we are going to discuss so double equal to here. Getting the point? So double equal comes under the initialization section here. Only the single equal here we can call it as a initialization here. Right. The line number 4, now what we are doing here? We are initializing the value 100 here. Getting the point? So 0 will become 100 here. So after this, the line number 5, again what we are doing here, we are trying to check with the num. So what is the num we are having? So this particular num will having 100 value. This particular num is having 100 value. So now what we can do? 100 into, getting the point? 100 into something called 2. So what is the value we are going to get? The same value again we are storing into this particular same variable here. So how we are storing it? Now you can see the right side name variable here. So this is also important here. So the right side variable name, which is going to provide the information after performing some operation, the final result value we are storing into the right side variable here. Getting the point? So this is the right side section and this is the left side section here. So now what we are doing here inside this particular left side section here, we are trying to multiply the value, whatever the result we are getting, we are storing into this particular right side variable here. But basically in the current example, the left side variable and the right side variable we are having same here. So don't confuse here. In the upcoming classes, we are going to use the different values here. Okay. So now what we need to understand here, after completion of this particular left side operation here, so whatever the final result we are going to get, the final result here we are storing into the right side variable called num here. So this is very important, we need to understand here. So because of this, so finally the value we are going to get as a 200. Getting the point? So final value we are going to get as a 200 here. Right. Now, so we need to understand here one more important information, scope here. The scope also very important here. The particular scope also is very important here. Observe carefully. Observe carefully here. Now what I am doing here, let me clear the screen. So now you can see the main method scope is enabled here, line number 2, and which is closed here, line number 7 here. Getting the point. So between this, whatever the variable we are going to declare here, so we need to use within the scope here. Within the scope here. If we are trying to use outside of this particular scope, the scope is closed line number 7 here. If I am going to use after the line number 7 here, now what happens internally? We are going to get an errors here. So those errors we need to understand here. So observe here. The scope is very important here. Now what I will do, simply I am trying to print to the same message line number 8 here. Right. So go back to the folder, like yesterday we created the folder inside this particular, so D drive, core Java, open command prompt, and now what I want to do, Java C example2.java. Observe here what happening here. So try to read this particular 2 errors here. So this is very important, we need to understand here. So what exactly these errors are indicating here? What exactly these errors are indicating here? Now you can see, so this is expecting here. So up to this is the nature of the error message here. So is nothing but this is our the file name, and this is the line number, and this is the error message here. So what is exactly which is expecting here? So identifier expected here. So what is the identifier is expecting here? So this is we already identified here the predefined method called println here. We can use this particular predefined method here. But what is the identifier is expecting here? Right. So now, so this is the string message. The string message also we can use here, no problem here. But here, what is the identifier here? Num is a identifier. So same way you can see the same file name, the same line number 8 here. So illegal startup type here. Startup type here. So type is nothing but data type here. Getting the point. So what is the data type we are using here? So the data type called num here. The data type called num here. Right. So illegal startup type is nothing but, so we are using outside of the scope. Like first we need to understand here why we are getting these 2 errors here. So in the line number 8, why we are getting these 2 errors here. Getting the point. So back to here, the same line number 8 here. If I am going to change this variables information here, getting the point. So now clear the console. Again I'm trying to compile here. So what happened internally? So still we are getting here. But now you can see the line number 9 we are getting here. So same with the line number 9 or not? Right. So let me check here who is the person. So like you need to enable your audio option here. So someone is not able to hear. Okay. So back to here. What happened here? So we created outside of this particular scope here. Getting the point. So we created outside of this particular scope. So still we are unable to access here. Now observe here. So we are trying to declaring this section here. We are trying to declaring this particular variable call into num here. So where we are declaring here inside this particular class level here, but we are trying to use inside this particular class. So still we are unable to access here. So let me save the same class here. We'll try one more time here. So why this error is getting the point. So we are getting the same error here. We are getting the same error here. So basically, now we are inside this particular static method. Now we are inside this particular static method. So we are accessing non-static variable here. So it's nothing but instance variable here. Getting the point. So because of this, we are going to get an error here. So if I'm going to change here, observe here. So basically, I want to discuss this regarding this information more here. So now what happened internally? So we are getting multiple errors here. So now you can see the same error we are getting here. Identifier is expected here. Static number and something, the same illegal sort of type here. Getting the point. So how we can resolve these errors here? So let's see. Where the scope is closed here, and number 8, the particular scope is completed here. So what I want to provide here, inside this particular static method, so we can access only the static information here. Now, to static now. So remove this particular static here. So you'll see the error we are going to get in the different. Again, we are getting the same here. So anything we are missing the syntaxes? No. Let me comment out. Basically, so whatever the variable name we declare, so we don't want to get an error. The line number 9. Let me save here. We are into the same or not? Okay, right. So this is we are expecting the same here, non-static here. We cannot use the non-static variable here. So which is expecting the same. Okay. So basically, so whatever the variable we are declaring here, we cannot use this particular variable inside this particular method here. So we'll see how we can resolve this particular expected identifier information here. So what I want to provide the information here, whatever the variable we are declaring, so those variable will accessible inside this particular scope here. So that is I want to provide this information here. So regarding this particular static information, we can discuss in our upcoming classes here. So it's not a right time to discuss this particular static section here. Right. Now, so back to here. So we are going to get an compile. It is compiled successfully. So the number value we are getting 200 here. Cutting the point. So we can discuss this particular information like outside of this particular scope, how we can access this particular variable information here. So once we are familiar with the classes related example, we can have the particular information here. Cutting the point. Now, so back to here, we want to discuss this particular section called the if statement here. So how exactly the particular if statement is going to work here? Getting the point. So to work with this particular if statement here, what we can do? So basically, using this particular three operators here, we can work on the if conditions here. So the first one, less than and greater than equals to. Getting the point. So less than, greater than, and equals to. This particular operators here. So how exactly we are going to work on the simple. So to work with these three operators here, what is the syntax we need to follow here? So now, so class example 3 or if sample, so public static void main. So instead of args, now what so we can change the different variable name here. So instead of args here, now what I'm doing here, I'm trying to take as a test here. Right. So observe here, we need to work on the if statement here. So how exactly we can work with this particular if statement here. So to work with this particular if statement, so we need to follow the condition called if here. We need to follow the condition called if. And here inside this particular open brace, we can define the condition here. If this particular condition is returning true, so we can enter into this particular block of code here. Right. If this particular condition is failed, so we cannot enter into the line number 4 here. So we'll go outside of this particular scope called if condition here. Getting the point. So this is important here. Observe here how I'm defining here. So I'm defining this particular if condition here. So here, now what I'm going to do, I'm defining num here. So num less than 100 here. Num less than 100 here. If this particular 100 is satisfied, if the number value is less than 200, now what happens internally? So whatever the condition we are making here, so this condition will become true. So otherwise, it will become false here. So this is very important here. Now, how we can check here? So first we need to check with what is the number value here. What is the number value? So for example, we are having this particular number value 10 here. For example, the number value we are having 10 here. So how we can check here? 10 less than 100 here. 10 less than 100 here. Getting the point. 10 less than 100 here. This particular expression which is going to return true or false, we need to understand here. So it's a simple mathematics, something called the less than greater than here. So it will become true or false here. It will become true or false here. So basically, the less than, the right side value, if it is a greater value compared to the left side, sorry, the right side value is a like a less value compared to the left side value here. Getting the point. If the left side value is a bigger value compared to the right side value, the whole expression will become true here. So otherwise, it will return false here. If I'm going to change here, so 1000 here. Getting the point. The right side value we are having 1000 is a bigger value compared to the left side value, something called 100 here. So this particular whole expression will become false here. So this is the less than operator is going to work. Same thing if I'm going to change here. If I'm going to change here greater than here, so this particular expression will become true here. The particular expression will become true here. Now observe here. So this particular expression will become false here because the 10 value is a less value compared to this particular 100 here. Getting the point. So we need to understand very carefully the less than and greater than here, because in the real time also we are going to use more and more here. So this particular if condition is going to play very important role in our real time application here. because most of the time we are going to write the conditions here, right? So now observe here. So along with this particular if condition, we'll have a simple example here. So how we can define this particular simple example here? So now again I'm trying to define the same data type here, int here x comma y. So this is the different way to write the example here. Whenever we are having two variables here, we can declare like this here. So otherwise we can use like this also, into x and into y. So we can define either x comma y, or we can go for the into x and into y, right? So we can define the both cases here, so it's applicable here. So back to here. Now what I'm doing here, x is equals to 10 I'm defining, and so y is equal to 20. So it's nothing but, so this section what we are doing here, declaration, and so this is the initialization here, getting the point. So these are the two sections very important here. So declaration and initialization here. Now observe here, I'm trying to write here the condition here, x less than y. So can you please let me know whether this particular line number 6, so which is going to return true or false, here. So I want to confirm that the line number 6, it's going to return true or false here. So try to focus on the same example here. If sample here, so what exactly the line number 6 is going to return here? Like I seen only 2 people here, so because around we received the the current batch 20 members are joined, so I want to get more output here. So still anyone having a problem also, please let me know. If you are not able to understand this particular example, we'll try to focus on the clarifying your doubts here. Okay. Not able to get the messages. Okay, so back to here. So like how we can check whether this particular block is going to return true or false. So now observe carefully, if this particular if condition is returning true. So now what I'm doing here, I'm trying to define here system dot out dot println here. I'm trying to define this particular system dot out dot println here. So here I want to write the one message, x is less than y. Getting the point, x is less than y. So this is important here. If this particular expression is returning true, if this particular expression will return true, so this particular statement will execute here. So otherwise this particular statement is not going to execute here. So now what I am doing here, observe carefully, x is equals to x multiplication of 2. Getting the point. So this is also important here. Now observe here, again I'm trying to work with one more expression here, x equals to y. X equals to y. So can you please let me know what about this particular line number 8 here? The line number 8 will return true or false here. So only one answer. Can you please let me know what is your output, whether it is wrong or right? So that is not a matter here. So just like I want to know like how we are trying to think regarding this particular current example here. So the basic stage is very important here to understand this particular Java language here, because the flow of execution is very important here, how the values are initializing and how these particular expressions are going to checking the internal value, getting the point. So this is very important here to understand the initial stage of examples here. Okay, anyway, I don't know, most of the people are they are not interested to show their outputs here. No problem. So we'll try to check with the current example here. So let me write the message here. Now x now equals to y. Getting the point. So this is a x is equals to y. So one more step I want to write here. Observe carefully. I'm trying to define here x greater than y. So observe how many the expression I'm defining here. The first expression we are defining with less than operator, and the second expression we are defining with equals operator, and the third one we are defining with a greater value here, greater than operator here. Right. Now observe here, if this particular expression will become true, now what happen internally? So this particular message will execute here. This particular expression like message will execute here. Greater than y. Right. So this is important here. Now observe here, one more condition I'm trying to check here. So observe here, if x equals to y. So whatever this particular line number 13 here. So what is the output you are trying to think here? Whether line number 13 is going to return true or false here. System dot out dot println here. System dot out dot println here. So I want to define the same message one more time here. Let me close the main method brace and class level brace. Okay. Now I want to save this particular class with the if sample example. Okay. So I just want to compile here, clear the console, Java say if sample.java. Now the compilation is successful here. The compilation is successful here. Let me run the same example here. So what are the values we are expecting here? So we define 4 println statements here, but we are getting only 3 here. Can you please let me know why the fourth one is not printing here? Now we can see, so first, second, and third, fourth here. We define the 4 println statements here, but now you can see in our command prompt we are seeing only 3 here. We are seeing only 3 here. So why we are not seeing 4 here? Why we are not seeing 4 here? Anyone having an idea regarding this particular current example? Okay, so no problem. If anyone having like how this particular simple example is going to execute it, can you please let me know? So from the which line number it is started, and from the which line number it is ended, and how many conditions is satisfied here. Anyone having an idea? No? Okay. So observe here. So as we discussed in the yesterday class here, basically it's going to start from the main method, right? So after calling this particular main method, now what we are doing here, we are trying to declaring the two variables here. What are the two variables we are declaring here? The first variable called x and o, the second variable called y here. Getting the point? So these are the two variables we are declaring here. So after this, now what we are doing here, we are trying to initializing the value. So initializing the value. So what are the values we are trying to initializing here? So carefully observe here, the x value initially we are having 10. And the same way, the y value we are having 20 here. Getting the point? So x value 10 and y value 20 here. So because of this particular line number 4 and 5. Line number 4, the x value will become 10. The line number 5, the y value will become 20 here. Observe here. And the line number 6 condition. So first we need to check the line number 6 condition here. So line number 6 condition is nothing but how it look like. X value we are having 10 less than y value 20 here. Getting the point. So what about this particular expression is going to return true or false here? Right. So this we already discussed here. This particular expression will become true here because the left side value is bigger value compared to the right side value here. So the section will become true here. So once this particular section will become true, now what happens internally? So this particular println method is going to print. So this particular println method is going to print. Right. So later, now what we are doing here? The line number 7, we are trying to multiply this some value here. So what is the x value currently we are having? So the current value we are having 10 here. With the 10 value, now what we are doing here? We are checking the value, like we are trying to multiply the 10 value here. So it will become how much here? 20 here. Getting the point. Now the same value we are assigning into this particular x here. So whenever we are trying to assigning the same value into the same variable here, now what happens internally, the 10 will become 20 here. The 10 will become 20. Now we can check with the double equals operator here. So basically the double equals operator, what it will do is going to compare the two values here. Getting the point? Is going to compare the two values here. So what are the two values we are having? The right side variable is equals to the left side variable or not, or we can compare the left side variable is equals to the right side or not. Getting the point? So this is very important here. If the both variable, like both the values are equal here, the entire expression is going to return true here, right? So it's going to return true. Now we can check here. So the x value we are having 20 and the y value also we are having 20. So because of this particular 20 and 20, the expression will become true and the line number 8 println method is going to print here. Getting the point? So this is the second println method is printing here. And finally, what we are doing here? So with again the line number 10, we are trying to multiply the value. So what is the x value right now? The x value we are having 20 here. Getting the point? Now what we are doing here? So with the 20, we are trying to multiply with 2 here. So 20 into 2. So what is the multiplication value we are going to get here? What is the multiplication value we are going to get here? Something called, here we are going to get 40 here. The 20 will become 40 here. So now you can see the x value current value is how much? 40 here. Getting the point? So now you can check the last condition, the line number 11 condition here. So what is the x value? The x value we are having 40 here. Getting the point? The x value we are having 40, so greater than y value. what is the y value we are having? 20 here. Right. Now you can observe here the greater than the operator here, what is doing here? So which is going to check the right side value if it is the bigger value compared to the left side value. So it's going to return the entire expression is going to return true here. Right. So because of this, the line number 11, this particular block of code is going to return true. If it is returning true, what happens internally? This particular println method is going to execute here. The println method is going to execute here. And the final one we need to understand here. So now you can see the line number 13 we are having. So one more condition. We are having one more condition here. So what is the x value right now here? We are having 40 here. Right. So here we are using double equals operator here. So the purpose of this particular double equals operator we identified. So it's going to compare the both values here. So x value we are having 40 and y value we are having 20 here. So both the values it's are not equals here. Getting the point? Both are not equals here. If the values are not equals here, now what happens internally? The expression which is going to return false here. If this particular expression is returning false here, so this particular println method is not going to execute here. This particular println method is not going to execute here. So this is very important section we are discussing here. Still anyone having any questions regarding this particular current example? Okay. So I am expecting here everyone is clear this particular current example here. So basically whatever the example we are discussing here, so this is very important example here because in the real time we are going to use more and more this particular conditions here. Okay, so back to here we can check with one more example here, loop related example here. So just for understanding here how we are going to use the syntaxes in Java, I am trying to providing these examples here. So how we are using this particular syntaxes here. So now you can see the syntaxes here. We are defining the data type, and whenever we are trying to declare the more than one variable here, we are defining with a comma specified here, so that we can define as many variable names we want to define. And finally, we are ending with a semicolon here. So why we need to add this particular semicolon here? Getting the point. So end of the line, if we are trying to providing the semicolon, the compiler will know. So this is the end of the line here. This is the end of the line here. The line is ended here. Getting the point. So same thing we can define here. X is equals to y. The current the line number 4 also ended with a semicolon. Compiler will understand here. So the current line is ended here. Right. If I'm missing this particular semicolon here, what happens internally? So if I'm trying to remove this particular semicolon, line number 6 here, so observe carefully. If I'm going to compile here, the same example here, we are getting an error here. Getting the point? We are getting an error here. So which is expecting here? Now you can see the error semicolon is expected here. So this is, we need to understand here, identifying the error also very important here. Getting the point. So we'll try to check with more and more regarding this particular error related information here. Now, so after this, we are identifying a multiplication section, and the syntax of this particular condition is very important here. So observe here, we can define this particular section with different ways here. The first way we defined here, the second way we can define like this also. The second way we can define this particular like this also here. So now if this particular block of code is returning true, so then only this particular println method is going to execute here. So same way how it is executing, the beside this particular condition, so it's going to execute if I'm going to write. So below the particular condition, right? And along with this, we can define the scope here. So we can define this particular scope here. So inside the scope, we can define as many we want to write the multiple lines of code here. But if I'm missing this particular scope here, we can define only one line here. Getting the point? We can define only one line of statement here. We cannot define more than one line. So this is also very important. We need to understand here. Okay. So back to here, we can check with one more example with a loop related example here. So don't worry as of now here how exactly so this particular condition and loops are going to work. Just focus on the syntax here, how we are trying to use here. So this is very important here. And now observe here what I am doing here. We'll check with the loop related example. And okay, so I missed to explain here the test here. So basically, this is the variable name of this particular data type here. Getting the point? So this is also important here. So not only the particular args, we can take with the test also, because we can define the variable name, any variable name here. So we don't have the particular constant variable called args here. So that is identified in the previous example here, test. With the test also, the same example we executed here. Basically, this is the name of the variable. The name of the variable is going to store the values which is coming from the command line here. Same way how we are trying to creating this particular X here. Right. So now we can check with the same test here. We can go for the ABC also. We can go for the ABC also, because the variable name we can define any name here. Okay. So back to here, I'm defining here int X here. So int X is, and X is a, what is the X here? X is a variable name here. X is a variable name here. Now observe here, I'm checking with the for loop here. So to work with this particular for loop here, now how we can work on this particular syntax here. The syntax we need to follow here, basically this is the keyword here. So inside this particular keyword, first we need to work on the initialization section. The initialization section we already identified here. So we are trying to initializing the value here. The X value we are declared line number 3, and the line number 4. Now what we are doing here? We are trying to initializing the value here. So what is the value we are trying to initializing here? The value, initial value I am trying to initialize with 0 here. And so we are checking with the condition here. We are checking with the condition here. X less than 10. X less than 10. Observe here, again we are using the less than operator here. So observe here, not only in the if condition, we are working with the for loop also. Getting the point? The less than operator, we are working with for loop as well here. So just you can think how much is very important here. After this, now what I am doing here? I am trying to incrementing the value. So how I am trying to incrementing it? X is equals to X plus 1. X is equals to X plus 1 here. So this we need to understand here. Initialization section and condition section here, and iteration section. So initialization section this is, and condition and iteration here. Getting the point? So these are the three sections very important here. These are the three sections are very important whenever we are trying to work with this particular for loop here. Whenever we are trying to work with this particular for loop here. Right. So observe here how exactly this particular for loop is going to work. How exactly this particular for loop is going to work. And let me clear this particular message information. Now what I want to do, so I want to provide the message here. system dot out dot println. Here I want to provide the x value. So this is the x value here. Getting the point. So if I'm going to close this particular main brace and class level brace, let me save this particular class here for a test and clear the console. Java C for test.java. Now you can see it's compiled successfully and Java for test. So how many times this particular value is printing here? So how many times the x value is printing here? So basically, initially we are having the particular x value 0, but final result you can see the x value we are having 9 here. The final result, the x value we are having 9 here. How these particular values are printing here? Right. So first we'll check with the condition. Sorry, syntax is here. So observe here, up to this we already identified here. So declaring the variable here. And so this section also we identified here, initializing the value here. So initializing the value here. Right. So initially, what is the x value we are having here? The x value, let me write here, x value 0 here. Right. Later, now what I am doing there? So back to here, the condition here. The condition is very important here. So x less than 10 here. X less than 10. So x less than 10 is nothing but x value we are having 0. So 0 less than 10. So can you please let me know 0 less than 10. So this particular expression which is going to return true or false. This particular expression is going to return true or false here. So I just want to confirm that like how we are trying to think regarding this particular expression here. No. Okay, no. So basically, so this particular expression will become true. So this particular expression will become true because so the right side value is a less value compared to the left side value. Okay, the condition is returning true. So once this particular condition is returning true, what happens internally? So it will enter into the below statement here. It will enter into the below statement here. So what we are doing the below statement here? So just we are printing this particular x value. Just we are printing this particular x value here. So what is the x value? The x value we are having 0 here. The 0 value is going to print. After printing here, now what happens internally? This particular loop is going to repeat one more time here. Because the condition is satisfied here. Getting the point? So once the condition is satisfied here, so it's trying to iterate one more time here. Getting the point? So the loop is going to repeat one more time here. So before going to check with the condition here, what will happen internally? So it's going to check with the iteration here. So this particular iteration section, what exactly it's going to perform here? Basically, we are checking with the x is equals to x plus 1 here. Initially, what is the x value we are having here? The x value we are having 0. So 0 plus 1. So 0 plus 1 here, what is the value we are going to get here? Right, the 0 will become 1 here. The 0 will become 1. Basically, 0 plus 1, the value we are going to get 1 and the right side value we are assigning into the left side variable here. So what is the left side variable we are having? Again we are having the same x value here. Again we are having the same x value. so that the x value now will become 1. Now again we are checking the condition. So 1 less than 10. 1 less than 10. So again the condition will become 2. So the value, 1 value is printing here. Again is going to repeat one more time. So now we need to check the condition here. So 1 plus 1. 1 plus 1. It will become 2. So we are checking with 2 less than 10. We are checking with the 2 less than 10. Right. Now what happens internally? So the condition also satisfying here. The 2 value is printing and is trying to iterate one more time. So now we are checking with 2 plus 1 because the x value we are having 2 and we are assigning with like we are trying to adding with one more value. Getting the pen. So x value 2 and we are adding plus 1. So it will become 3 here. It will become 3. So now we need to check the condition. 3 less than 10. 3 less than 10. The condition will satisfy here. Right. So up to 10. Up to 10 here. Getting the point. Now we can see, so 10 less than 10. 10 less than 10. So this is important here. So this particular section, what happened internally? The 10 less than 10 is going to return true or false. The 10 less than 10, which is going to return true or false here. So basically, it will become false here. It will become false here. Getting the point. So this is important here. This is important here. So whenever we are checking with the less than here, but now it will become true. When it will become true, less than or equals. Less than or equals to, it will become true. So say the difference here, less than condition will become false here and less than or equals to condition will become true here. So this is we need to understand this, the difference between less than and less than or equals to here. Okay, so we'll see later less than or equals to conditions here. But now what we need to understand here, how exactly the for loop is working internally. How exactly the for loop is working internally. So basically what I want to provide, so this particular loop is going to iterate multiple times until the condition will become false here. Until the condition will become false here. So how many times the condition is going to return true, the same times the loop is going to repeat here. So now in which scenario we can work on this particular loop here. So if we want to work with so collection of objects here. Basically, if I'm going to have multiple objects here, so instead of loading all the objects here, if I want to load one by one, or if I want to like perform some operation, so based on the one by one objects here, we can work with this particular loop sections here. So this is very important section we are discussing regarding this particular loop here. So we'll have a different loops in our Java language here. So we'll check with the different loops here. But just for understanding here, how we need to understand the syntax is here. If I'm going to follow the syntax is here, how the values are iterating one by one. That we are trying to understand inside this particular Cortex class. So anyone having questions regarding this particular for loop, please let me know. Okay. So if we don't have anything here, so basically now what I want to do, so first we need to check with data types here. So this particular data types are very important here. Getting the point. So from starting onwards, we are trying to check with the int here. We're trying to check with the int here. But what exactly the int contain here? Getting the point. So we need to understand so more information regarding this particular into data types here. Basically, in Java language here, we are going to have 8 data types here. In Java language, we are having 8 data types here. So what are the 8 data types here? The first one byte here, short into long here, float, double, char and boolean. Getting the point. So these are the 8 data types we are having here. So inside this particular 8 data type, we are trying to work with one data type called integer. We are trying to work with this particular data type called integer. Okay. So basically, this particular 8 data types are converted into the 4 groups here. So what are the 4 groups you are having here? Getting the point. The 4 groups you are having, the first group we are having as a integer. So inside this particular integer, we are having 4 data types here. What are the 4 data types we are having here? So these are the 4 data types here. This is the first group called integer. Inside this particular integer group, we are having 4 data types here. And another group we are having here. So what is the another group here? So floating point numbers. So this is the another group we are having. So inside this particular group, we are having these 2 data types here. These 2 data types here. So this is important, we need to understand here. And one more group here. Characters. Inside this particular character, we are having only one data type called carrier. So finally, we'll have one more data type here, boolean. Inside this boolean we are having here. So observe here, how you can see like we are having 4 groups here. So what are the 4 groups we are having here? The first one called integer. Inside this particular integer group, we are having 4 data types here. Getting the point. What are the 4 data types we are having? Byte, short, int and long here. Into and long here. Right. So second group we are having the floating point number. So inside this particular floating point number, we are having only 2 data types here. What are the 2 data types we are having? Float and double here. And so the below 2 groups we are having only one data type. For the characters group, we are having char. For the boolean group, we are having boolean here. Now we can see, so this boolean is different and this boolean is different here. Basically, these particular groups we are going to call as a wrapper classes, and this particular data types we are going to call as a primitive data types here. So carefully observe here, this particular integer we are going to call as a wrapper class, and this particular data type we are going to call as a primitive data type. Same way, this is also primitive data types, and for this particular group, we are going to have the wrapper classes here, float and double here. So these two are the comes under the wrapper classes here. So this is also wrapper class, and this particular boolean also wrapper class. What about this particular boolean? This particular boolean is a primitive data type here. Is a primitive data type here. So we'll see how exactly the primitive data type will work and how exactly the wrapper class is going to work here. Getting the point. So in our upcoming classes, we are going to focus on the primitive data type as well as the wrapper classes. So basically, the simple example, we are going to focus on the primitive data types. But after completion of this particular primitive data types, we can check with the wrapper classes here. Right. Now, what we need to understand here. Getting the point. So we understand the data types here, and we need to check with the range and the storage information here. Getting the point. In the computer language here, how exactly the values are going to store, we need to understand very carefully here. And basically, in the computer language here, all the objects, getting the point, all the objects are going to store in a binary format here. Getting the point? So the binary format which is going to look like here. So 0, 1, 1, 0. Getting the point? So we'll have a different two formats here. 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1. Getting the point? So this section we are going to call as a binary format here. So basically, whenever I'm trying to define this particular int x is a variable of which data type we are having, int. So now we need to understand here how this particular x value is going to store in our computer language here. Basically, in our computer, so the value is going to store as a binary format here. So store the value, we need some capacity, right? So we cannot store the bigger value, or we cannot store the small value. So we need some range here. Between the range only, we are going to store the values here. So what is the range of this particular value? For this particular byte here, we are having the range here, something called minus 128 to 127. Getting the point? So between minus 128 to 127, so we can insert the values here. Getting the point? So even though if I'm seeing this particular 128 to 127, but finally the value is going to convert it into the binary format, and after conversion of this particular binary format, the value is going to store here. So what about this particular bit here? Because we identified the range here, and how many bits this particular byte is going to store here. So this particular byte data type is going to store 8 bits here. 8 bits here. Getting the point? So each bit we are going to have the value 0 or 1. In the binary format terminology, 1 bit is equals to like 1 bit, either 0 or 1. Same way, the bit the byte data type is going to store the so 8 bit of values here. Getting the point? So 8 bit of values, whatever the values we are going to give. So for example, if I'm going to give byte y is equals to 10 here, byte y is equals to 10. The 10 value is going to store in the binary format with the help of this particular 8 bits here. Getting the point? So with the help of this particular 8 bits here, basically we can have here, so this is the storage of this particular 8 bits here. The byte data type will have in the storage called 8 bits, and between this particular 8 bits only the data is going to store here. But internally, how the data is going to store? The data is going to store in the format called binary format here. So we cannot understand here how the data is going to converted here. Right. So just for we can understand here, the data is going to converted into the binary format here. Okay. Now we understand regarding this particular byte here. So what about this particular short here? What about this particular short here? The short is having little bit bigger range compared to the byte here. So it's going to store the range here, something called minus 32 7682 767. So this is a short range here. We can store this particular value between this particular range here, and same way, so it's going to expecting 16 bits here. So to understand this particular 16 bits here, just go through the binary format information, how the data is going to convert it into the binary format, so that we are going to have the more understanding this particular storage of this particular data here. Getting the point? So just check with the storage capacity here. For this particular byte we are having 8 bits, and for this particular short we are having 16 bits. So that which is going to take some bigger value compared to the particular byte data type. Same way we can check with the integer here. So integer is having 32 bits here. Integer is having 32 bits. So compared to the short, which is taking some bigger value here. And so it's having, compared to the short, is going to take the big range here. Getting the point. So it's going to have the lakhs here. So we cannot define the lakhs range here. And for int and long, which is going to take the range, so in the lakhs here. Okay. For this particular long data type is going to store the 64 bits. So carefully observe here, the byte is taking 8 bits and short is taking 16 bits and int is taking 32 bits and long is taking 64 bits here. So see, the each data type having different bits. So it's nothing but the each data type having the storage difference here, right? So based on this particular storage difference here, we can go for the the specific data type here, right? So basically, most of the time we are going to work with int and long here, but only this particular byte we are going to work with file related examples here. So we'll have this particular byte data type when we are trying to discuss with the file related example here. Okay. Now back to here, the floating point data types here. So what are the floating point data types we are having? The float and double here. So we need to check with the float and double. So what are the data is going to store, and how exactly what is the storage and what is the range between float and double here. Basically, float and double here. So basically, float is going to take 32 bits, and the range also, the range is going to have in the lakhs here. Getting the point. So how the range we are going to have for this particular range? So approximately, so the float also is having the same here. The float also having the same here, and for this particular double here, which is expecting 64 bits here. Right. The range for this particular double is going to have approximately similar to the data type for long here. Long and double will have the same information, and for the float and into will having same information here. Cutting the point. So these are about the floating information. Basically, how we are going to work with the float example here. So we'll have a simple example on the each data type here, how exactly the values are going to taking the each data type and how we can work on the some operations here. Right. So back to here, character related here. Basically, character is having the same here. Character is having same comparison of this particular int here. Right. Now observe here. For this particular character, which is going to take here 16 bits here, and the range we are going to have this particular character, so 0 to 65 536. So this is the range of this particular character here. We can store up to 65,536 values here, right? And internally the character is going to take as a 16-bit here. Basically, so here we need to understand one more information here, ASCII values here. So internally the Java, which is going to work with the Unicode format here. Getting the point, Unicode format here. So Unicode format is nothing but like if you know how the ASCII values are available, so based on this particular ASCII value, so Java is going to check with the Unicode format here, right? So Unicode format is nothing but so if I'm going to define this particular A inside this particular ASCII and Unicode value, the value will become 65. The value will become 65. If I'm going to define capital B, so the value will become 66. Getting the point. In the Unicode point of view, this particular B value is having 66 value. whatever this particular A, it is having 65. So we'll have a simple example to understand more on this particular CAR related example. Getting the point. And so a very important here. So Java is going to work with a Unicode format here, and C language is going to work with ASCII value format here. So this is the difference between C language and Java language here. And finally Boolean here. So Booleans, so these are the two variables here, true and false here. So based on our requirement, we can work with this particular Boolean values here. Getting the point. So these are about the data types we are having here. So based on this particular data type, we will have a simple example here. Getting the point. So first we will check with integer data types here, how we can work on the simple example here. Let me create a simple example class here. So the class here, what is the name of the class we can take? So Lightspeed. So I want to take as a Lightspeed the name of the class. And string args here. Right. So after creating this particular main method, now what I'm doing here, so I'm trying to defining the data type here. Observe here, I'm checking with the int data type. So what is the int data type here? Something, the variable name I'm defining, Lightspeed. Right. One variable I'm taking as a Lightspeed, long days, and long seconds. And finally, we need to work on the distance. Correct the point. So observe carefully how exactly so this example is going to work. Now what we are doing is, so we are defining one data type called int, and the name of the variable we are defining as a Lightspeed, and remaining three variables we are declaring with the long data type here, days, seconds, and distance here. Okay, so I'm trying to defining approximately the Lightspeed here. So it's nothing but I'm initializing the Lightspeed value. So what is the Lightspeed value approximately? So something called, I'm trying to define this some random value here. Right. So it's nothing but we define the one variable, we are initializing the value. So this is all about the approximately Lightspeed here. So with the help of this particular Lightspeed, now what I'm doing here, I want to find out the days here. So 1000 days here. So the days variable I'm trying to initialize with 1000, and I want to find out the seconds here. So to find out the second here, so what is the logic we need to follow here? Getting the point. So to find out this particular seconds here, so what is the logic we need to follow? First we need to follow days into, so in a day we are having 24 hours, into 1 hour we'll have 60 minutes, and per minute we'll have a 60 seconds here. So this is the format we need to follow to find out the seconds here. So now I'm trying to find out the seconds for this particular 1000 days here. Right. Now I converted into the seconds here. So carefully observe here. So instead of providing the static value, now what I'm doing here, I'm trying to providing the dynamic value here. So dynamic value is nothing but the value which is going to get dynamically based on our requirement. If I'm going to change here 1000 instead of 1000, if I'm going to change to the 1200, now the seconds are going to change here. The seconds cannot be static here. Is nothing but static is nothing but the seconds cannot be a constant value here. The values are changing here. Getting the point. So this is important here. Now observe here after seconds here. we want to find out the distance here. So can you please let me know to find out the distance here? So what is the formula we need to follow here? What is the formula we need to follow here? The formula we need to follow something called light speed multiplication of seconds here. Getting the point. So based on this particular light speed into second, we are going to get a distance here. We are going to get a distance of this particular light here. Right. Now observe, I want to print out all the values here. Let me print the value. Getting the point. So how we can print this particular value? System dot out dot println here. Now I want to provide the information here. So in is nothing but, now what I'm doing here, I want to provide the information in 1,000 days. Getting the point. So in 1,000 days, so now let me check with the print method. So here we are introducing one more method called print yes. So what exactly this print method will perform here? Observe here in days. So this particular light will travel getting the point. Now I'm closing with the brace here. So I'm trying to print these two message. Along with these two, I want to print one more message. System dot out dot println here. Right. Sorry. Distance here. Something I want to check with the miles here. Observe here the difference between print and println method here. Getting the point. So I want to find out the first this example. Later we can check with the difference between print and println here. Okay, let me save this particular example. Lightspeed dot java. Clear the console. So Java C lightspeed dot java. It's compiled successfully. Lightspeed. Now, what you are understanding here? Now you can see. So in 1,000 days, this particular light will travel. So these many miles here. Getting the point. So this value we cannot hold into the into data type or the byte or short data type here. Getting the point. So based on this particular requirement, we can work with the different data types here. So now you can see we are having some bigger value here. But observe carefully how we are trying to perform here. So we are defining the 4 data types here, and we are trying to initializing the 3 values, and the 4th variable we are trying to check with some multiplication operation here, and finally with the help of this particular 4 variables we are trying to print all the information here. So basically, if I'm going to use this particular print method, so what exactly it is doing here? The print method will print the message on the same line here. is going to print the message on the same line here. So see the difference here. I want to check with println here. So here also I want to check with println here. Now observe the difference between above message and below message here. Compile one more time and execute one more time. So see the difference message here. The above message is printing only the one line and the below message is printing in the 3 lines here. So why it is printing in the 3 lines here? Because the each method we work with println here. So println every time is going to print the message on the next line here. The message is going to print on the next line here, right? So now, so this is the difference between print message, print method and println method here. Getting the point? So carefully observe. This also very important here. Where we need to use the print method and where we need to use the println method here. Because the logical question perspective, the print and println method, which is going to play very important role here. Because so to print some format related message here, we need to follow the print and println method here. Okay. So back to here. Now we understand the integer group related data types here. Now we'll check with the floating related example here. So to check with the floating related example, now what I want to do, I want to check with one more class here. So to check with this particular class here, now what I'm doing here, I'm checking with the ratio related example here. So it's nothing but area. Now the class we created as a area publish.age void main syntax, right? Now what I'm doing here, I'm trying to define the double data type here. So double data type here, I'm trying to defining the variables here. The first variable called pi, and the second variable I'm defining as a r. The third variable I'm defining as a here. The third variable I'm defining as a here. Getting the point. So now we need to understand here to find out the area of some circle here. So to find out the area of circle here, so how we can perform this particular operation here. So what is the R value I'm trying to initialize? Some value I'm trying to initialize with this. So difference, the value initialization, you can see the difference between integer data type and floating data types here. So we don't have any the dot here. The fraction values we don't have. Getting the point. So we are not using any after the dot values here. But the dot values we are using inside this particular double data type here. So this is important here. So getting the point. So in the which scenario, which data type we can use, this is important here. For this particular dot related values, we can go for the double and float data type here. Double and float data type. Now the R value I'm defining. So along with this, the pi value also I'm defining here. So 3.1416. The pi value I'm trying to define. So to find out the area here. So what is the logic we need to follow to find out the area? Area is nothing but A. A is equals to pi into R into R. Getting the point. So basically to find out the area, so we used to call with pi R space. So to find out the pi R square, we can work on the pi into R. Getting the point. So this is the way we can check with the area here. Let me use the semicolon to complete the current statement here. Right, and let me define the message here. System dot out dot println here. And what is the message we can define here? Area of circle. Yes. So, semicolon we need to open and close with these two braces here. One is the method level braces and another one is class level braces. So now what I'm doing is I'm trying to define the area here. Right. So let me clear the screen. Java say area.java. It is compiled successfully. Now we can see. So this is all about the area of the particular circle here. Getting the point. So this is all about the area of circle here. So this is the way we can check with the example whenever we are trying to work with the double data types here. Now you can see the final output also we got with dot values here. Getting the point. So for the dot related data types, we can go for the float and double here. Right. Now we can check with the character related example. So to check with the character related example, what we can do. So let me change to the Java class here. Here we need to work on the character related example. So to work with this particular character related example, char demo public static void menu string args. I'm defining char here. So the char here ch1 and comma ch2. The two variable I'm defining here. Cutting the point. So two variable I'm defining. I'm trying to initializing the value here. ch1 is equals to 88. So observe here, I'm trying to initializing the integer value. So carefully observe here, I'm trying to initializing the integer value for ch1 and for ch2, I'm trying to initializing character here. So observe the character value we can work with single quotes. So it is important here. We need to work with a single quotes here. Right. Now you can see the first one I'm trying to work with integer value. The second one I'm trying to work with character value. The character I'm trying to define within the single quotes here. So if I'm going to remove this particular single quotes, we are going to get an error here. For the character, we need to follow either single quotes value or we can work with integer data types here. Now observe if I'm going to print here. System dot out dot println, or we can go for the print method. The print method here ch1 and ch2. Here I want to work with println here. ch1 and I'm giving some space here ch2. Cutting the point. ch1 and so to print the message some understandable way, I'm trying to giving the space between the two characters here, and I'm saving this example here. So char demo. Okay, focus here. What is the value we are going to get for the ch1 and what is the value we are going to get for the ch2. So this is important here. And Java say char demo.java. It is compiled successfully and char demo. Now you can see for ch1 and ch2. For ch1, what is the value we are getting? X value. For ch2, whatever the value we are having, same value we are getting 2 here. Let me compile one more time. Now observe, so with some between space we are trying to read with a understandable way. Observe here, CH1 and CH2. So the X is indicating for the CH1 and the Y is indicating for the CH2. For CH2, we given the Y value, the same Y we are printing here. But for CH1, we did not provide the X value here. What is the value we given here? The value we given as a 88 here. The value we given as a 88 here. But the output we are getting as a X here. But how we are getting the output as a X here? Getting the point. So this is important here. Basically, the Java internally is going to work with the Unicode format here. Based on this particular value, based on this particular value in the Unicode, whatever the character we are having, the particular character is going to load here. If I'm going to change here 65, if I'm going to change to this particular 65, observe here, capc.demo. Now you can see for the CH1, what is the value we are getting here? A we are getting here. Getting the point. So A we are getting here. For the second one, we did not change anything here. So to find out here, what we need to do, so go to the Unicode related website here. You can check what are the values we are having for this particular characters here. For this particular characters here. So based on these particular values, the characters are going to load here. Right. So this is all about the cat related example here. So we'll try to focus on the Boolean in our tomorrow class here. So anyone having any questions regarding our today's session, so please let me know. So regarding this particular if statement, for loop, and the data types here. Okay. So if you don't have anything, yeah.
Are you able to read the chat?
Sorry.
Are you able to read the chat?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought like you weren't getting the messages. That's why.
No, I'm able to read the messages.
Because I just asked like, can we get the Unicode by type conversion? Like, can we get the Unicode from the character?
Okay, Unicode. Okay, type conversion, like what we want to get here.
So basically, like, can we get the Unicode onto like a variable or something if we give the character? Because here we gave the Unicode and we got the character, right? Can we do the reverse of that?
Okay, so that we can check tomorrow.
Okay, sure.
Any other questions? Why this chart is not readable for me. Okay. Someone asked the question, what is a vapor class? Oh, sorry. So maybe I think the chart is in the disable for me. So just now I enabled here. No problem. Okay. So basically, regarding this particular vapor classes, we can discuss. So it is not a right time to discuss the vapor classes here. So once we are familiar with the class related examples here, so then we can go for the vapor classes information here. So there you are going to get an understand very clearly. If I am going to provide the information, you cannot understand what exactly the vapor class here. And so I think I did not miss anything here. Remaining are the messages related to the previous examples here. The fourth, we did not define the expression. Okay. So any questions? So declare the variable garbage value. So basically, it is because of this particular notepad display, the comments are hidden. Declare variable garbage value. Sorry, I did not understand what is exactly your question here.
So like when we declare a variable, for example, if it's an int, is it always gonna be initialized to 0 if we don't initialize it?
Yes,
Like in C or CPP, you'll have a garbage value which is assigned to it, right? If we don't initialize
yes,
it, we only declare
yes.
it. We don't initialize it. So what will be the initial value when we declare it?
0. For the into data type, it will the all the byte short into long for the all the data type 0. For the floating here 0.0, there is no character value. For the boolean, the by default value false.
Okay.
Okay. So those sections we can discuss when we are trying to discuss with the constructors related information. So there we are going to have more information. So we can discuss with the class example, and I will show you how the default values are providing here. Okay. So any other questions? Okay. So we'll continue tomorrow the remaining sections here. Can you show all the example again? Okay. So what do you want to ask? So from here we discuss here. Okay. So like what is like exactly you're asking for the variable overflows?
So like for example, in the light speed question, we were storing it into a long variable, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So the thing is, suppose if seconds itself is a very large number and days itself is a large number, then when we store it into distance, it will be gonna be a even bigger number, right?
Yes.
So, but light speed and seconds are long, and the distance variable is also long. So, will what if long is not able to hold it after the
Okay.
multiplication?
Yes. So basically what happens internally, so based on this particular bit size here, internally they are going to do some calculation. So what exactly the value is going to fit, the same value is going to fit. We can discuss the data type conversions here. Like whenever we are trying to convert into one data type into another data type here, how the values are going to store here. The same question here, if I'm going to convert to long value into data type, like how the data is going to store. From the same thing, from into to long, how the data is going to store. Correct. So this is this your question, right?
Right. Yes.
So that we can discuss in our upcoming classes, because we are having the concept here, type conversion. We can discuss
Okay.
more on this. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. If we don't have anything, we'll continue tomorrow.